My name is Larry Caddy, Technology Training Specialist. I've been with Vertex for over 13 years, and my entire life at Vertex is about instruction of indirect tax. I basically deal with all Vertex indirect tax solutions that you see listed right here. So our objectives for this session: upon completion of the session, you'll be able to enter a certificate record information along with saved certificate images. You'll know how that process works. You'll be able to batch validate certificates. You can manually validate or batch validate. We're going to do both. We'll create letter batches for customer correspondence. You need to reach out to customers, make requests for new certificates. We'll also utilize certificate validation rules extract report. What is it? What can it tell you? And use this transaction tester to test exempted customer certificate. We want to know that what we set up is correct and it's going to work. Our session agenda: introduction, about 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes for objectives and overview, which we're kind of covering right now. Then we're going into the description of ECM, demonstration of ECM features and functions, 40 minutes, and Q&A will be 10 minutes. So we have a polling question. This is polling question number 1. There's a total of 3 polling questions. I believe the last one will be after the session, is after I've done my demonstration, but let's start with this one. Do you use Vertex ECM for certificate management? Yes, not at this time, but may utilize in the future. We use another solution provider to manage certificates, or we use a homegrown certificate management solution. So I'm going to give you about 40 seconds to answer those questions, if you please, and then we'll move on and I'll show you the results of what people have responded. A little bit more time. I've got a nice countdown timer in front of me so I can see how much time. I want to make sure I give everyone enough time to answer the question if they so choose. Okay, let's move forward. The results are 38% yes, 42% not at this time, 10% we use another solution, and 8.8% we use a homegrown certificate management solution. All right, thank you for those responses. Interesting. Okay, so what is Exemption Certificate Manager? Some of you know, 42% of you already do know. Vertex Exemption Certificate Manager, digital repository for sales and use tax exemptions, really of any type. Resale, direct pay certificates, whatever. Whatever you can tie to a customer, you can store it. Easy to use web-based application. That's because it's integrated with O-Series, or it's a standalone. It uses a web-based platform. And it stores certificates electronically, provides easy searching and customer notification functionality. You can set that up. We're going to do that. It's a single repository for storing, viewing, and analyzing tax exemption certificates. You've got it all in one place. You can do it right there. Provides automated validation of certificate number and certificate expiration date. What is validation and what the heck do we check? We'll find that out. It offers bulk distribution of certificate requests via letter batch functionality with internal email capabilities. You can send hundreds at a time if you need to. I hope you don't have that many requests to make, but if you need to, you could. And we're going to do some. We're going to do 1 or 2. The audit certificate feature, that's all about allowing certificates to be exported by jurisdiction, dates, and customers. Essentially, the term audit certificates, it's for an auditor. If you need to give an auditor some information, you can show which certificate, what jurisdictions are covered by the certificate, and give them a copy of the image that you've stored. There's also a comprehensive library of common jurisdictional forms. The bulk of these are for the United States, but there's quite a few for British Columbia. And since it's an O-Series product, it has role-based security. Okay, let's move on. If we're talking about ECM standalone versus ECM with integrated with O-Series, ECM standalone, the installation is essentially the same for both products. You use a Java-based archive file, the install.jar file. Obviously, if you license ECM standalone, and you would do this if you were a sales tax Q series customer, then you would license ECM as a standalone, and you can use this tool to validate certificates and do most of the other functions that you can do in ECM when it's integrated with O series. You only get the menus that are relevant for ECM as a standalone. So you see My Enterprise, Reporting, and System, and even those are reduced somewhat. The submenus are reduced somewhat because you don't have the same functionality in the standalone version. You get a limited data management set. So the data management that you would normally perform is more limited than would be O series, for instance. And of course, just like O series, which I'm going to explain in a moment, it requires the application of your monthly data update, MDU, and service releases when they're available. Service releases are something that you choose to install and you test first and then put it into production. That would be your choice. With O series and ECM, so ECM integrated in O series, again, the same installation and jar file, it's your license that's going to make a difference here. You get a license directly or only for ECM or ECM with O series. So it would include all those functions, all those menu options that are part of O series, including tax setup, more comprehensive My Enterprise tools. You wouldn't get that. More comprehensive reporting and more comprehensive system and data management menus. And just like the standalone version, you must apply the monthly data update and service releases when they're available. Your O series navigation, we're going to actually get into this shortly, but it looks just like this. Your home menu up at the top, and if you haven't seen version 9 yet, this is kind of what it looks like, almost 100%. We're looking at the home menu right here where Vertex is listed in the top left, and then you have a hyperlink menu, My Enterprise, Tax Setup, Tools, Reporting and System, and you also have that same menu off on the left panel, which is collapsible. Logging out is over on the top right, okay, and you also have your username and partition. So much as it is exactly the same for ECM as a standalone, you just get a limited menu set, okay? So it does a few less things. The expanded version of the certificate management menu, this is where you'd find your forms, your letter templates. If you need a template, you can create one or use one of Vertex's that's already made. And then that becomes a letter batch. So that's what's included in a batch of letters you're going to send out, which, and when I say letters, I'm talking about either printed or email. You can email directly out of O series ECM if you've authenticated your email server parameters in the config file. So forms, letter templates, letter batches, audit certificate, and non-compliance will help to show you what that is also. Polling question number 2. Let's take a look and see what we have here. This question is, do you use other Vertex certificate management solution? This would be yes, ECP, Exemption Certificate Portal with ECM, or yes, ECP with ECW, Exemption Certificate Wizard, or no, certificates are managed outside of Vertex. I would assume that, I probably should have had a choice on here that said no, just ECM alone, but I did not think of that. That was my mistake. So we'll give you the 40 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at the results. ECP with ECM, ECP with ECW, and managed outside of Vertex, 66% on that choice. All right, thank you for those responses. Okay, let's begin the program tour. I'm going to share a screen, a different screen. This is my screen. All right. I'm sharing the screen that has me, allows me to log into Vertex O series. So let me go ahead and log into my partition. This will be the bulk of the demonstration. You can see the menu that we have right here, which matches the one we just had seen. Let's hide that. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to go to My Enterprise, and I apologize for turning away to the side here, but I've got two monitors. My laptop is in front of me with the camera. The two monitors to my left and my right do not have a camera, so I'm always going to be looking away a little bit. So apologize for that. Let's see what we've established. We do have a taxpayer established, so that's a necessity. And we've also established a single customer. This is a customer that does not have a certificate. I'm going to actually just show you what we have here. This is a customer called Allied Manufacturing, fictional, of course. And what I want to do is look at contacts, and we've established a contact. So this is one of the main things you have to do if you're planning on using a letter batch. You're going to have to establish a contact for not only your customers, but your taxpayer. So when your customers respond, who do they write back to? Who do they email? Who do they get fax to? And when you're reaching out to your customers, who is the contact? And so that's what this information represents, including email address, phone, fax, and so forth. Most of this information, if not all of it, you could get by without a phone extension, but based on the standard letter templates, you would have to have all this completed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is add a customer, and that is a singular customer, and I've got some information right here. So we're going to give it a code of AGP 100, and we're going to call it Allygate Products. And the taxpayer, it's going to be assigned to a taxpayer. So that means when you create a customer, you must associate it with a taxpayer. When you create a customer, also now in Vertex, you have the ability to create a child level taxpayer. So that means that if you have a parent taxpayer, let's say I set this up as a parent, I can create children to this parent, and this parent's exemption certificate would apply to the child level customers. I'm actually not going to do that today, but none of this other part matters right now. I'm not defining shipping terms or discount categories. My start date is my as of date in the top left corner. These fields for your information can be populated if necessary. These are open-ended fields, but there's also a drop down where it says custom lookup, and you can actually specify something there if you want to. Under contacts, we're going to establish this role as, let's just flip my page here and get to this contact name. We're just going to say this is both shipping and billing. We're going to say that this person told us that they are with the tax department. And their first name is going to be Kevin. And this is a fictional name in my book, but if it's your name, my apologies. I hope it's not. Certainly there's no such company, so you're good there. My phone number will be 313-821-4500. Looks like my keyboard wasn't here. 313, let's try that again. -821-4500. The phone extension, you probably could get by without this, but I'll fill it in. My fax number, you would need to have this, 313-821-4599. Fix that typo there. Okay, I'm going to put in a street address, 5200 Woodward. City is Detroit. State is Michigan, postal code 48202. And the country, USA. I put this in. And what I want to do now is add my contact and then save my customer. Right? So now I have a couple of customers here, and here they are. One established the 23rd of October, one today. Now at this point, I want to expand taxability driver management. Well, I don't really need to expand at the moment, but I'm going to click on certificates. We're not going to associate a tax driver. We're going to create a certificate. So I'm going to add a certificate for this customer. So I went to certificates and I click add. I'm now looking at exempt certificate. Here's a choice of classes. It could be a direct pay permit or a special condition certificate. Special condition certificates would be something like applying a partial exemption for California exempted machinery, or applying a basis rule for federal government that's making purchases in the state of Arizona. So might be a 50% basis rule. This is something that could be done in O Series, okay, or through the ECM that's integrated with O Series. Your certificate result is going to be exempt. Zero rate could apply to Europe, although I've not seen it frequently used. Your scope of a certificate is either blanket or limited. If it's blanket, it covers everything. Limited means it covers only the tax drivers you specify. So if I had some, I could specify them. Single use would be you put in an invoice number, so it would just be for that one time. The customer I'm going to choose is AGP 100 right there. And my contact, since I created a contact, and you can create more than one contact for a customer, and then pick which one is just this one person. Okay, so my transaction type, what do I want to exempt them for? A sale, a rental, a lease, I can choose all three. I'll just choose sale for now. I could put in a note. I'm going to define this as a manufacturer. Hard copy location. Do I have a hard copy of this? Just say, I don't know, cabinet A or something like that. And check off, do I have a hard copy? Have I received it? So I have a physical copy of the certificate that they've given me. Yes, I do. Okay, so at this point, I want to go to the jurisdictions tab. This is where we begin the process of associating the jurisdiction that came in. So the customer provided a certificate and gave you a list of jurisdictions. So I'm going to use a multi-jurisdictional certificate. And so that certificate actually has multiple states. Alabama, it's got Colorado, it's got Illinois, it's got Michigan. And so there's going to be some data on that, which I'm going to reference that's going to give me everything that I need. So I'm going to pick these jurisdictions. And if I knew that what I sold, you know, Alabama has lots of locally administered jurisdictions. So I'm going to check Alabama, and automatically when I put a check mark in here, that means that the exemption applies to all cities, all counties, and all districts. But that may or may not be true depending on what I'm selling. And I might need to have, you know, make a request for a local level certificate for particular cities that I'm going to turn off the exemption for. And I'm going to filter this by picking by the county. So the county I'm going to pick is Otaga. I'm going to simply say that this certificate does not exempt the transactions in these cities. Furthermore, as far as counties go, we're going to say that Otaga is also a county that does not, exempt this transaction based on what's being sold. So that's just Alabama. Now I want to go back and do the rest of these. I'm also going to do Colorado. I'm putting a check mark in Colorado. I'm going to do a similar thing for Colorado. For Colorado, I'm going to go to cities, and I'm going to go to filters. And I want to pick my county, so then I can just see what cities are in that county. So I'm going to turn off let's see here. I need to get cities here. And so I want to, let's do filter. I'm sorry. So Denver is the one I want. There's only one city, of course. And then counties, well, I'm going to turn off, we'll turn off Denver as well. All right. So now I've got that. I'm going to select that. I'm going to continue to pick jurisdictions. So I've got Alabama, selected exclusions, Colorado, selected exclusions. I'm also going to pick Illinois, that's state administered, and I'm going to pick Michigan, which is also state administered. Okay, so now that I have those jurisdictions, I'm going to highlight the Alabama jurisdiction. Here's where I can pick the form. So the form that I want to use is going to be this one. I want to know which one is there. And then I'm going to put in a certificate number, which is EX. This is provided by on the form by the customer. My issue date, the issue date of this certificate is actually going to be September 21. So they're sending me a certificate form from this year, but it's actually a little bit earlier, September 21. And I'm going to let Vertex figure out the expiration date if one applies, and it is a manufacturer reason code. I'm using Vertex reason codes because we have the logic about whether or not something is valid or not valid based on that. Okay, so actually what I can do right now is I can validate this certificate, and you can see that here's what comes up. In Alabama, we must have an expiration date that's within 3 years of issue date, and the certificate number is optional. But had I put one in here that was meaningless, it's likely it would not have been validated because there is a format, okay, as you can see. I just happened to use a format that highly matched what was required. However, I'm going to show you other choices for the other jurisdictions. Let me point out impositions. This is one that has lots of local level imposition. It's also possible that if you knew a certain tax wouldn't apply to the transaction, you could deselect that particular, let's say in Baldwin, local sales and use tax. This is another way to, when I say turn off the tax, I'm talking about turning off the exemption. It will be taxed. It will be taxed. All right, so that's what the exemptions tab would do. Going to Colorado, same situation. The form's already picked. Let's just go back to details. So I need to put in a certificate number. 231186 is what was provided. And my issue date is, I've got to go with the same date as I had. I can't have multiple issue dates on one form. Okay, it's going to be September 21. And I'm not going to do the expiration date, and I'm going to do the manufacturing. So I'm going to use, rather than validate this and the next one's after it, I'm going to go ahead and save this when I'm done, and then use batch validation to see show you how that works. I'm going to go to Illinois now. And Illinois has a number of 012-352219, 352219. And again, September 21 is my issue date. And not putting an expiration date, but I am using the reason type of manufacturing. As I pointed out, these reason types have the logic built in behind them, so we know if there should be some check for expiration date or certificate number, if even they exist. And then lastly, Michigan, form's already chosen. Michigan, on the form it said no number was required, so I will leave it blank. I will put in the date. It was issued on the 21st of September, and no expiration date, but the reason type will be manufacturer. Okay, so now that I have all of these, I'm going to go jump to images, and I'm going to install my image. Now, I could have, if you have situations where all your images are assigned a URL, you can bring it in that way. Alternatively, I'm going to just choose an image. So we've got one here for Alligate products, and that's what I'm going to do. And at this point, I'm going to save my certificate. I'm going to save it. And if I click search, you can see I do have it. And if I click on the image link, it gives me right here. So let's just kind of expand that a little bit. And so you can see here is my certificate. I believe it's September 21. Yeah, there we go. It's signed by Mr. Kevin Stafford. This is how they filled it out. No number required. They said they're exempt on Michigan. So that's good. So there's my certificate. I've got a capture of it. And so now what I want to do is I want to go to the jurisdiction batchation process. Okay. I want to go to the jurisdiction batch validation. So I'm going to go to system menu and data management. And what I want to do is batch validate the remaining 3 certificates. Now, it is one certificate form, but there's 3 other jurisdictions. So I've got to batch validate that. So I expanded data management, and I'm going to just come right down here and go to certificate validation. And I'm going to validate unvalidated certificate. So any certificate that's unvalidated means it's never been subjected to clicking that validate button or a batch validation. All right. And so we'll just call this, that's the only one I have. So I would name it differently if I had hundreds more. And I'll click run. It runs pretty quick, and I can just click refresh, and it's pretty much done. So what I'd like to go back to do is I'd like to see now, how many do I have that are invalid? So what I'm going to do is run a certificate report, custom report, and under extract definitions. And what I want to do is add the certificate validation report. It's actually going to be under sample extract. We have one here called invalid certificate sample report. That's the one I want to copy. Okay. And the fields are already here for me. So there's really nothing I have to do. I could rearrange them if I want to, but at this point, I'm going to go with it the way it is. This way I can see. I'm looking for validation status equaling invalid. The format is, I'm going to leave it as a PDF. I don't need the data source. I don't need filters. I don't need a record count. Okay? I've only got a few there, but I'm going to do save and run. So whenever I create a report that's a data extract report, I'm going to save it so I can go back and look at it again and then run it. And so it's already done. If I click view, what I get, and let's expand this, I get one certificate that comes up that's invalid. It's for Colorado. So I need to go in and look at this certificate and see why it's invalid. Why is it invalid? All right. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to tax, to my enterprise. I'm going to go to certificates, and I'm going to search for my certificate. And here it is. I'm going to click edit on the certificate. And really, I'm going to go into jurisdictions, expand this. I'm going to go to Colorado, and Colorado is already said it's invalid. Notice that the invalid button is here, but I don't know why. But if I do validate again, it's still going to be invalid, but now I'll know why. So the reason why is certificate number is optional, but the certificate code fails to match any pattern. So this number apparently doesn't work. So it's not going to work. And when a certificate is invalid for a jurisdiction, it will not exempt the transaction. Will not exempt it. Okay. All right. So now that I know that that's going on, it's now time to go into my situation of under my enterprise, under certificate management. So I need to begin the process of creating a letter template. Okay? I need to create a letter template. Actually, before I do a letter template, let's do this. I'm going to go to my transaction test, and based on the information that I have, and I can cancel this, I'm going to test my certificate. I know that some are invalid, so I would expect them to tax the transaction. I know a few that were also removed from the exemption status, like Alabama local jurisdictions. So under the tools menu, I'm going to go to transaction tester, single transaction. Now, I've already loaded this transaction. I've already set it up. So I'm going to load it from a file. And what I've done is I've done essentially 6 line items that are going to represent multiple jurisdictions. Once this calculates, I will give you an explanation of all of these. And all I need is $100 on each one. It doesn't really matter. Now, this may take a little bit. I hope it won't take too long, but I've got to go with it. I'm in a hosted instance that's in a cloud that's certainly not not too bad. It's certainly not one of the high-end, throughputs. So let's take a look and expand this and see what we've got. So on this one, this certificate is for Alabama, and Alabama, the state, well, that exemption remains. So there is no tax here. The next one was Watauga County, and we turned that off because they would need their own certificate. So that tax is charged $2, 2%. And the city of Otaugaville, we turned that one off. That's within Watauga County. So that's 3%. Now, if we go to this one is Birmingham, Alabama. And this was one of the cities that was included. So just want to show you that You've got no tax at the state, no tax at Jefferson County, and you have no tax at Birmingham. The next one is Colorado. The Colorado certificate was invalid. And that's number one. And number two, well, number one, I guess, should be this, that we removed Denver and Denver County, although there's no tax in Denver County. But as a result of removing it from the exemption, we now get taxed. The Colorado location below is Aspen in Pitkin County. That was part of the exemption, but the Colorado certificate was invalid because the number was wrong. So tax is charged. And then we have Michigan. That was no tax, so that certificate is good. And then lastly, Illinois, that certificate was also good. And so what we have here is no tax. So that gives you an idea of using the transaction tester. Following up, I want to go to letter batches. So let's collapse this, go to My Enterprise, go to Certificate Management, and let's go to letter templates first. So I already created a letter template called Corrected Certificate Request. All right, so if I wanted to edit this, I could go in and edit it. And what I've done is I put a couple of sentences in here. And I also was able to put in a sentence that said, your certificate may be invalid for the following reason: jurisdiction certificate number. So I might have ones that are based on jurisdiction certificate number being invalid or some other reason. Okay, so this is ready to go. So this one is ready to go. And so now I want to go to letter batches, and I'm going to create a letter batch for, I have nothing already, search, anything here. So I'm going to add a letter batch using the certificate. I'm going to call this batch name, I'll call it the corrected certificate request, so it matches the letter. The letter template is the one I created called corrected certificate request. The certificate status is none. I'm going to leave that blank. The taxpayer, and you notice there's a checkbox here, so you actually could include more than one taxpayer if that was the case, is Megacorp. The jurisdiction, I'm going to leave blank because I'm going to let it, pull up anything that it needs to pull up. But my filter options here, for an invalid certificate, what I want to do is choose one that says display customer with certificates that have a status of incomplete. All right. And then when I save this, what I get is this choice. This is the company that has the invalid certificate. The form is, I can include a form, right? The jurisdiction is not listed. I didn't really list it. I wanted to see what would come up. But it'll list it in the letter, I'm sure. I have an opportunity to preview this letter. And so here you go. So it's giving me all of them: Alabama, Colorado, Illinois, and Michigan, which had nothing, no certificate number at all. So that would kind of give them a clue as where they have to look, right? Here's their email address. I want to have no errors here. If I have any errors, this batch of letters cannot process. Now, by default, it checks it off as email, and that's fine if you've authenticated your email parameters. However, in this situation, we have not. So the only thing I can do to process this is to go ahead and click hard copy. And this is like a global setting. So if I had 20 rows here, I could globally select hard copy or email and then deselect any particular row. And when I process the letter, okay, then it gives me this letter that comes up that looks like this. And then now what's occurred, this is ready to be sent either by, regular U.S. Postal Service or by email. But I want to point out that when I've done that, I've actually moved them into the status of non-compliant. So under certificate management, you see this non-compliance menu, right? You see the non-compliance menu. Let me just do one more certificate here. I'm going to do one that doesn't have a certificate. We're going to call this no cert. And this is going to be just the standard certificate request letter. I call it first request. First request. The taxpayer is the megacorp corporation. There we go. And the customer is, well, I know that, you know, I'm leaving the customer blank. It'll give me any money that doesn't have a certificate. All right. But my filter down here must be display customers that have no certificate. Certificate status, of course, will be none up here. And I'm going to click save. And once again, I get somebody called Allied Manufacturing. And here's my preview note. You know, so I don't have a certificate from this company at all. I've got them as a customer, but no certificate. And, you know, when it's time to process this, then, you know, I'm going to check off hard copy because, again, I don't have the email parameters authenticated in the cloud. And I'm going to click process letters, and the letter pops up and looks like this. All right. So you can print it off and mail it or fax it. So I pointed out that once I process a letter batch, I'm going to have customer codes and companies that appear on this non-compliance list. And so for non-compliance, I'm just picking the company, the taxpayer, and then I'm going to run this. Now, if you know what day you contacted them, you could put a contact date in there, and that acts like a filter. But once I click run, then what I get is a list of all the companies that I've reached out to. Here's Alabama, Colorado. And so I'm waiting for a form to come back from Allygate that's going to include these same four. They're going to give me a new certificate entirely. I don't know which they'll do, as well as Allied Manufacturing. Okay, I probably could have picked Allied and gone in and figured out which jurisdiction and then tailored it for that. But so it didn't know, since I didn't pick a certificate, which jurisdiction would be the one it's going to. So that's non-compliance. The next time that this would clear out, the non-compliance report, is when you receive a certificate and now they've given you a certificate and information and you create that new certificate and Vertex finds it, locates it, and matches it up to the customer record. And then that non-compliance report is automatically cleared. The audit certificate menu is all about generating a certificate for an auditor, or for yourself for that matter, if you want to. Why not? You can do this a couple of different ways. One way is picking the jurisdiction. So if I said, well, if I want to pick Alabama, let's say, I can do that. And then I can run this, and then I will get my audit certificates report, which gives me a list, you know, the customer code, the contact name, certificate number, issue date, expiration date, image name, you know, that there's certain 4 cities excluded, 1 county is excluded. If I wanted to get specific, well, which counties, which cities, then I would do it this way. I might say display excluded jurisdiction. I don't want to display included because there's 457 of those. That's too many. Alternatively, I can also use customer import. So with a text file, I can provide a list of customer codes to be imported. Just select my taxpayer. And with a text file and then a jurisdiction, then it'll find any customer that's associated with that jurisdiction of Alabama and this taxpayer. That's another way to get your audit certificate. So either or. So if I just do this one, customer selector, and I've got these two, and I'll just go with display excluded jurisdictions. I'll run that one. Now you see which ones are excluded: Autauga County, Autaugaville, Billingsley, Millbrook, and Prattville. And then your certificate image is right here. All right, there's your image. Okay. All right, so we have covered that information. I want to take a quick peek at a couple of things. I want to go to reporting menu. I talked about certificate validation rules. Okay, Vertex looks at some things to determine what makes the certificate valid or invalid. In my reporting menu under Custom Reports VRA, which is data extract, I want to look for extract definitions. And I've already created something here, but one of them is called U.S. State Certificate Validation Rules. I click edit, then I could provide a name for it and the category of what it is. It's also true that if you had multiple partitions, you like this extract, I would probably run it a few times and make sure you do like it. Then I would go ahead and definitely check this off to share it with other partitions. This way you won't have to create it for that in that partition. Under fields, the fields come in alphabetically. So I've rearranged these to make sense for me. The start date and end date, a certificate number validation type, a format. What format is the format? Is the basically it's going to give you like a format mask. It's going to tell you the format of the certificate number if one's required, and a sample of that format. Certificate reason type. Well, we're going to see there's all types. 501. I can't think. It's 501B or something. 501. There's a number for that. So the numbered values are going to be first. There's all type diplomat, manufacturer, resale, all type farmer, whatever. So what I'm going to do is for certificate reason type, I put a check mark in the group box. I like the term, I know it says group, but I like the word section. I like it because it creates a section just for that type. And it'll do that repeatedly. So it'll go through that exemption reason type, and then it'll do jurisdiction by jurisdiction, and then it'll do the next jurisdiction. So, and I've also sectioned in ascending order, the jurisdiction name. So it should start with Alabama, I would imagine. Okay. So if I do save and run, let me do this. Filters, I want to make this for the United States. So I'm choosing not to look at anything that might be in the country of Canada or the province of Canada. Okay. My format, you can make it multiple choices here: Excel, HTML, RTF, XML, CSV. I'm going to do PDF. It's easy to display and quick. Obviously, if you choose CSV, then your fields, these grouping and sections really don't apply. All right. So I'm going to click save and run. And let's just refresh this. And it's actually already done right now, 2:14. So I'm going to click view. And so now I get a list of the different types. So it actually is going to put the reason type first and alphabetically sort the state: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, etc. For everyone, it has a 501c. A little bit, I was a letter off, 501c. And then it goes on and on. And so if I use the Control F function, then I can do, well, what about manufacturer? And so when I do manufacturer and hit enter, the first one I see is Alabama. And notice that Alabama, the certificate number is optional, but if you do use one, it has to be this format. And here's the sample. And how many years from the issue date is the expiration date? 3. Arizona, they don't have so many rules. And then we didn't use California, but we used Colorado. They have lots of rules in terms of not expiration, but certificate number. Although it's optional, there's very strict formats. Apparently, my format didn't match. So when my customer submitted their format, put the certificate number on the certificate form, it was apparently incorrect. Other ones we want to think about are Illinois. Here's Illinois. So Illinois certificate number is optional. There's a format that begins with a 0. How many years from issue date? 5 years. So I would probably bet that Vertex put in a 5-year future date when this would expire. And then the last one was going to be Michigan. I don't want to go past it. And here's Michigan down here. Michigan has no rules. The certificate number is optional. And years from issue date, 4. So that's what I have on that one. So that's what a certificate validation report will do. And will tell you what Vertex looks at to see why a certificate is valid or invalid. Essentially, it checks the certificate number, format, and it checks to see if there's a expiration date, if any, from the issue date. Okay. So, all right. I'd like to go one more thing under the system menu. For anyone who's using ECM as a standalone, then one of the important things you need to do after you create your certificates is to perform a TDM certificate export. When you perform a TDM certificate export, it puts the certificate in a format that can be directly imported into the tax decision maker of Sales Tax Q Series. Right, and so I have to give an export file name, TDM. Let's just call it that. All right, and so then it basically runs it, and then it's done already. I can view the job. If I want to download this, it looks like this, and here's the structure. Very simplistic and for Q Series, and creates a very basic certificate. These are all state-level exemptions only. Now, you're not going to get the granularity of, turning off the exemption at a local level. It's either on or it's off. All right. So let me move forward with our, that about covers everything I have to show you here. Let me go ahead and move forward with our final polling question. What methodology of technical training do you prefer? Instructor-led classroom delivery, what I used to do most of the time. Instructor-led web-based that is remote, that's what we're doing right now. Remote learning that is self-paced only, or a combination of instructor-led and self-paced remote learning. We'll give you the 30 seconds on that. I have to stop sharing the screen. So my apologies if you can't see that poll, and that was my mistake. Let's do that. Let's find the share. I got to stop sharing that. Let's go right here. Okay, I believe I stopped sharing. Let's give you another 30 seconds. My apologies. Thanks, Ricardo. Okay, let's move forward here. What we have is instructor-led classroom delivery, 18%. Instructor-led web-based that's remote, 21%. Remote learning that's self-paced, 7%. Or a combination, 53.5%. I still have a job. Thanks so much. All right, in this session summary, we created a customer. We associated that customer to a certificate. We performed a manual and batch validation of the certificate. We became familiar with the criteria Vertex uses to determine a valid certificate. We used the transaction tester for O series only, of course, to test an exempted customer. We created an invalid certificate extract report. We created a certificate validation rules extract report. And we used a letter template and letter batch to correspond with the customer contact. What are your questions? I've got to expand this here. I see some questions. Well, I'm trying to expand this here. What I don't see, Ricardo, is the way to, I see one question, but there's no scrolling. Well, it's actually not a question. I don't know if there's any questions that I can see.
Larry, I see about 40 questions.
Okay, there we go. I had to click on the red. Okay, all right. So this came first. Which ones are first here? Oh, no, let's go to the bottom and work our way up. Well, hi, Sue. Nice to see you, too. Thank you. Yes. Are there plans to expand ECM functionality for issuing certificates? I'm going to have to defer to that. I think, well, let me rephrase. I think mostly, the expansion has really taken place in Exemption Certificate Wizard, which is a tool that allows you to provide access to your customers that they can create their own certificate, but it walks them through the process Therefore, they don't have to. Let's just close this. It walks them through the process. Therefore, they do not have to worry about making it incorrect. So it pretty much makes it, I don't know, I use the term loosely, audit proof. So that's about as much as I could direct to that one. So thank you for that question. But they are going to be captured. So let's scroll up here. Did he say that we? Yes, I did say that. The question was, did I say that we could send batch letters through Vertex? Absolutely. You must make sure your email parameters are authenticated within the config file, and you can email directly out of Vertex. You know, I didn't go to the forms library, but even in forms, you can email a form to a customer if you need to, and you can email that form directly out of that. So, you know, like a blank form. Can we do an import of customers? Yes, customers can be imported as well as certificates. So yes, absolutely. Can a customer be associated to multiple taxpayers? I'm going to have to capture that question and get back to you, but I would think, why not? I would think that you could have multiple, you know, in this instance, I've only got one taxpayer, but I believe that you could associate that customer with multiple taxpayers. But we'll capture that question and hopefully I can answer that. Let's see. Instead of manual entry of customer in Vertex, can an interface be created between and the interface needs to be done? That would be a question for directors group. So the question is, instead of manually entering customers in Vertex, can an interface be created between the ERP between Vertex and the ERP so that this can be done automatically when the company creates when material data management creates a customer in ERP. So that would be something that would be, an enhancement of a connector, I would imagine. So it's, that's how that would probably be done. Must all contact fields be filled in order for letter batching to work properly? So the question is, I said that most of the time, yes. You could create your own letter batch that had very few fields. And if they're missing, they're not one of the ones that you didn't fill in, so no problem. It's when the letter batch doesn't have the field that it needs to populate in the letter that it's not going to process. So look and see which fields are in a particular letter template, and they're the ones you have to fill in. But based on the standard letter template, you can get by without a phone extension. All the rest you have to fill in. It's the same process with the L5 version. Well, this is actually, L5 is, you're looking at returns, I think, and this is Exemption Certificate Manager O Series, and we're only on O Series 9. So I don't have an answer for that question. Can you do a parent-child certificate, for example? Yes, you can. You can have a parent customer with children customers, and the parent certificate becomes the exemption record, exemption document for the children customer. So any child that you associated to a parent, the parent certificate will take over. Of course, they have to be in the appropriate jurisdiction. You can't just put a child in, Colorado or Illinois, but the parents in, Michigan. That's not going to, they have to be in the right jurisdiction. So yes, that can be done. What's the purpose of the end date and the general tab certificate? The end date, the general, that's where you create the record. So that's like when you choose to end date the certificate, you're saying that you don't want it to be found in the data anymore. When I create a new certificate, for instance, let's say I create one, let's say I sent a certificate out, or I've entered a customer with a certificate and it's been, I don't know, X number of years now, and that certificate expired. Now they send me a new one. So when I create that new certificate, Vertex will find the old one, end date it, and create the new one yesterday, or create the new one today and end date the old one yesterday. So that end date terminates the ability for that certificate record to be found in the tax data for a calculation. It can always be found in the search when you choose the parameters of the status parameters of, no start date and no future start date and no future and with an end date. So yeah, the one-time exemption for the invoice number or PO number, etc. Does this just store it? We have a folder for one-time exemption that have not previously put them in ECM. Well, it'll store a number in there based on whatever you put in. So that record, that data is stored. So yeah, the one-time exemption for invoice number or PO number, that's going to get stored in there. And that's how, if it didn't get stored, we wouldn't find it. So, what are user-defined jurisdictions? I apologize if I said user-defined jurisdictions. I meant to say locally administered jurisdictions, and I apologize if I had that mistake. A locally defined jurisdiction would be what I'm talking about. I don't know what a user-defined jurisdiction would be in this context. Same process for exemptions certs to vendors. Yeah, except that, when you're in procurement, you can't send a reminder letter to yourself. So I can't share this here. You can't send a reminder letter to yourself. All you have is the forms menu. That's all you really have. But you can create a certificate and validate. Do you have to choose reason type to validate? Yes, you do, because all the rules are associated with Vertex reason types. If you choose your own reason type, user defined, some character of A to Z, 0 to 8, something like that, we have no idea what that means. So you must choose Vertex reason type. I'm coming from 6.0. It looks like you don't have to backdate the system to add certificates with an earlier issue date. Is that correct? Yes, your issue date can be prior to your, the issue date seems to be able to be set up prior to even the date of your customer start date or your certificate start date. Because, when you get a certificate form, which I don't have in front of me, it literally can be a month or two old. Who knows when it was signed? Maybe they're using that one, or maybe they just signed a new one. The question is, we always leave the issue date as the same date we are entering in Vertex ECM. So that would be like 11/11/2020. Is that wrong? Well, it's wrong if the date on the certificate form is different than the date you're entering. For instance, if in my case I'm entering the customer, I'm creating certificate record on the 11th of November, and that's when I created the customer. But the form that they sent me, the certificate image, was signed on the September 21, and putting today's date would be wrong. You need to put the date that's listed on the issue date if one exists. We have manufacturer reduced rate. If they provide a certificate, we code as manufacturer reasoning code. Will it know to do the reduced rate or will exempt the entire purchase? So you want to look for special certificate, Brian. There's a special certificate condition which will automatically give you the reduced rate in California. I assume for manufacturers reduced rate, qualified tangible TPP. I don't know what Alabama is. They might have the similar thing. I'm not familiar with that, but the special condition certificate, and basically what it takes you to is to take you to the taxability category tree, special conditions, and then you map that certificate to that particular category type, like whether it's a manufacturer certificate for California or Alabama or something like that.